think we need a brief lesson on Dionysus and Bacchus. Hello lovely people, this is Sam. I am Sam, this is Shadow Harvest, I can speak. And given the reaction to certain things to do with the Olympics, I figured why not have a brief history that I did a while ago. I did one on the lovely Medusa, and I want to continue with this brief god history dabbling, and so why not Bacchus and Dionysus? So join along with me as we look into who is this god, what did he do, and yeah. And if you didn't know, first things first, Bacchus, Dionysus, was a very big fan of the wine. So I will be having a beverage while I inform you all / go on a bit of discovery for myself. I have a light knowledge, there could be something I learned as well as we do this little research. So, and join me while we learn about the god of wine. Anywho, so everyone and their mother got up in arms on the Christian side of things, or really more evangelical, I guess, in America, because of this part of the games this year in Paris. Mostly because they believe it resembled the Last Supper. Now, while there are many things that we all pull inspiration from, and things evolve, the people of the Olympics came out and said, incorrect, this is Bacchus. So, as stated in USA Today, wild opening ceremony of the Paris Olympics put a spotlight on influential French metal bands. The parade down the River Seine featured plenty of eye-catching moments that sparked online fervor, including the now particularly infamous scene that outraged many Christians who labeled its resemblance to Leonardo da Vinci's famed Last Supper painting. In the tableau, a scantily clad man painted in blue emerged from the center of a table to sing among a dancing drag queens. Conservative and Christian leaders were quick to condemn the scene as offensive parody of imagery and symbolism that centered their faith, despite insistence of the ceremony organizers that they took inspiration from an ancient pagan festival. Now, the performance featuring Dionysus was one of the many highlights of the opening ceremony to this year's Summer Olympics, taking place Friday on and along the Seine. The tableau, which was broadcast upon the ceremony, included a woman wearing a silver halo-like crown at the center of a long table flanked by drag queens. The scene was promptly disrupted when a nearly naked man painting in blue emerges from a dinner plate surrounded by fruit. As he begins singing, drag queens break out into dance behind him. Portrayed at the Olympics by a French singer and actor, I'm gonna not say his name right, I'm so sorry, Philippe Caterine, Dionysus, known to the Romans as Bacchus, cheers, dear good sir, has close ties to France. In Greek mythology, he's the father of Sequiana. I'm so sorry to everyone who has any handle on romantic languages. I'm gonna butcher all of this and I apologize. The goddess of the river Seine, which they were all, swimming in despite its issues with E. coli. Even the official Olympic accounts on Twitter said Friday that the interpretation of the Greek god Dionysus makes us aware of the absurdity of violence between human beings. So what is the Festival of Dionysus? In the 5th century Athens, the Festival of Dionysus came to be one of the pinnacle events of the year. Every year around springtime, playwrights would compete to entertain the masses of the Athenians citizenry. According to Brown University, the festives also include a procession from outside the city limits in which the sacred statue of Dionysus was carried to a theater named for the god near the Acropolis. While the Olympic ceremony performance could be said to depict one such celebration, some have even said that the scene was reminiscent not just of Da Vinci's work, but of other works as well. Among them is the Feast of the Gods, a 17th century painting from a Dutch artist, Jan van, Bijlert. Only apologies, this is the name. Depicting the Greek god of Olympus crowded around the long table. At the center of the table is the sun god Apollo, recognized by a halo of light surrounding his head. The painting is among the collection of the Musée Magin in Dijon, France, which has posted images of it Sunday on X. Does this painting remind you of something? The museum said with a wink. Now, who is Dionysus? We should backtrack a little bit here. Walk it back. Who is this god? Why do we not know of him? What is there to know of him? Why do we celebrate him with such fervor? Dionysus, in Greco-Roman religion, a nature god of fullness and vegetation, especially known as the god of wine and ecstasy. The occurrence of his name on a linear B tablet in 13th century BCE shows that he was already worshipped in the Mycenaean period, although it is not known where his cult originated. In all the legends of his cult, he is depicted as having foreign origins. Dionysus was the son of Zeus and Semele, a daughter of Cadmus, king of Thebes. Out of jealousy, Hera, the wife of Zeus, because of course Zeus was fucking around again. So sorry, Hera. Persuaded the pregnant Semele to prove her lover's divinity by requesting that he appear in his real person. Zeus complied, but his power was too great for the mortal, who was blasted with thunderbolts. However, Zeus saved his son by sewing him up in his thigh and keeping him there until he reached maturity, so that he was twice born. I mean, really, honestly, are we surprised that there's another weird Greek birth thing? I mean, he pulled Athena out of his head. Aphrodite has some questionable origins with semen, sea foam, and of the like. Sure, pull a baby out of your thigh, or a full-grown man, I guess, at this point. Why not? Dionysus was then conveyed by the god Hermes to be brought up by the Bacchantes of Nysa, a purely imaginary spot. As Dionysus apparently represented sap, juice, or lifeblood element in nature, lavish festival orgia rites in his honor were widely instituted. These Dionysia, or Bacchanalia, quickly won converts among women. Men, however, met them with hostility. In Thrace, Dionysus was opposed by Lycurgus, who ended up blind and mad. In Thebes, Dionysus was opposed by Pentheus, his cousin, who was torn to pieces by Bacchantes when he attempted to spy on their activity. Athenians were punished with impotence for dishonoring the god's cult, their husbands' residence notwithstanding. Women took to the hills, wearing fawn skins and crowns of ivy and shouting the ritual cry, Ioi, forming holy bands and waving thersoi, or fennel wands abound with grapevine tipped with ivy. They danced by torchlight to the rhythm of a double pipe and a handheld drum. While they were under the god's inspiration, the Bacchantes were believed to possess occult powers. Oh, really? And the ability to charm snakes, suckle animals, as well as preternatural strength that enabled them to tear living victims to pieces before indulging in the ritual feast. The Bacchantes hailed the god by his titles of Bromios, thunderer, Taureros, bullhorned, or, oh my goodness, Taporo. It's Greek, I'm sorry, but bull-faced, in belief that he incarnated the sacrificial beast. In Orphic legend, based on the stories of Orpheus, Dionysus, under the name Zagreus, was the son of Zeus by his daughter Persephone. You know, I forgot about this part of her myth. At the direction of Hera, the infant Zagreus / Dionysus was torn into pieces, cooked, and then eaten by the evil Titans. But his heart was saved by Athena, and he, now Dionysus, was resurrected by Zeus through Semele. Zeus struck the Titans with lightning, and they were consumed by fire. From their ashes came the first humans, who thus possessed both evil nature of the Titans and the divine nature of the god. Dionysus had the power to inspire and to create ecstasy, and his cult had special importance for art and literature. Performances of tragedy and comedy in Athens were part of 2 festivals of Dionysus and Leaina. Dionysus was honored in lyrical poems. In Roman literature, his nature is often misunderstood, as he is simply portrayed as the jolly Bacchus, who is invoked at drinking parties. 186 BCE, the celebration of Bacchanalia was prohibited in Italy. Well, that's just rude. Let the people celebrate. Apparently, if you don't let them, they get a little feisty. The followers of Dionysus include spirits of fertility, such as the satyrs and Selene. In his rituals, the phallus was prominent. Dionysus often took a bestial shape and was associated with various animals. His personal attributes were an ivy wreath, the thyrus, and the canthasaros, a 2-handed goblet. In early Greek art, he was represented as a bearded man, but later he was portrayed as youthful and effeminate. Bacchic revels were a favored subject of vase painters. After the death of Ino, Bacchus was entrusted to the care of Nysiades, nymph of the Mount of Nysa. It was at Nysa that the satyr, half man, half goat, Silenus, became his guardian. He educated Bacchus and accompanied him through his travels. According to the historians, E.M. Burns in his book Mythology, Bacchus was perceived as a youth of singular beauty and somewhat effeminate appearance. The expression of his countenance is gentle and winning, the personification of nature. As the young god grew into manhood, he discovered the vine, and it is believed that he invented the art of making wine. After seeing how people enjoyed his wine, Bacchus traveled the Mediterranean and as far as Syria, Egypt, Arabia, and India, planting vines and teaching its cultivation. Often seen riding a panther, he carries a spear in the thyrsus as his scepter and traveled in a chariot drawn by lions, tigers, panthers, and lynxes, all sacred to him. Throughout his travels, Bacchus had his followers or revelers, some divine, some mortal, and most unruly female followers were referred as Bacchantes. Unfortunately, his followers and their festivals called the Bacchanals were not well received in many areas. Why do people not like the party? In Rome, the cult of Bacchus grew secretive, going underground for a time. Even its altars were ordered to be suppressed. Although Rome eventually accepted Bacchus worship, this is not the case in Lycurgus of Thrace, who drove away Bacchus' attendants and the nymphs of Nysa. Normally, the calm god of wine and revelry could be vengeful and angry. He drove Lycurgus mad, and so mad he jumped into the sea, but lucky for him, directly into the arms of the sea nymph Thetis. Atoned for his conduct, Bacchus punished him with the loss of reason. He eventually killed one of his sons. One interesting myth surrounding Bacchus was his kidnapping by pirates. One day, Tyrrhenian pirates spied the youthful Bacchus on a shore attired in radiant garments. Thinking of the possible reward for him, they seized him, brought him on board their ship, and bound him, planning to take him to Asia and sell him into slavery. Bacchus calmly asked to be put ashore, but the pirates only laughed and mocked him. Suddenly, the ship came to a complete standstill. The bounds fell off. The helmsman, believing he was seeing a god, tried to persuade the others to return Bacchus to the shore, but to no avail. A giant vine grew out of the sea, wrapped itself around the mast and riggings. Music and the scent of wine filled the area. Realizing belatedly that they were in the presence of a god, the pirates begged to be allowed to return to shore. Bacchus changed into a lion and charged the men. They jumped into the sea, where they all became dolphins, which, I mean, given how rude dolphins are, makes sense. The remaining helmsmen surrendered Bacchus to the Naxos shore, where he found abandoned the sleeping Ariadne. In the myth of the Minotaur, Ariadne was the beautiful daughter of the king of Crete, who had been abandoned by the Greek hero Theseus after she helped him defeat the half-man, half-bull. Rude Theseus. Bacchus was able to console her, and over time made her his wife. Unfortunately, she fell ill and died. The grieving Bacchus took little interest in music and dance until his father took pity and restored Ariadne to his side, making her immortal. There we go! That's the happy ending I like. Let the people be drunk and happy. Another interesting myth concerning Bacchus is a relationship to King Midas. Silenus, having little too much of Bacchus's wine, strayed into the garden of the king. He was discovered asleep and escorted to Midas, who treated him with kindness after being led back to Bacchus. The grateful god promised the greedy Midas a single wish. Midas asked that everything he touched would be turned to gold. This Midas touch worked for a while until the king became hungry, but his plates, cup, drink, and even the food all turned into gold. Realizing his dilemma, he returned to Bacchus and begged him to rescind the wish. The god told him to bathe in the river of Pactolus. Doing so, Midas lost the touch. Earlier, let's go back to the wondrousness of this painting, you know, because we have now heard Bacchanalians, nonsense, the raves, the craziness, the celebrations. We do what we want. We might even tear a man into little pieces. This all seems to make a lot of sense now at the opening of the Olympics, does it not? It's not always about you, Christians. Jesus came after, remember? This is debauchery and craziness and wondrousness and celebration of wine and all the lovely things that we like about humanity, including little bits of violence from time to time, as we see in the Olympic Games. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this very, very brief history. What do you know about Dionysus and Bacchus? If you have anything else to add, love to hear about it in the comments down below. And also, it's always very interesting to me, I think I'll talk about this in possibly another video, of how the influences of paganism throughout modern day culture, and specifically in art, is still fascinating. The little bits that like leak in, because we have been so fascinated with the Greeks very specifically for a very, very long time, especially in, I guess, what people would consider Western society and all that. So anyway, glad to see you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.